Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. Hope everyone is doing well. Good morning, James. Cassarat, doing as well as can be. Hope you're doing well. Just sharing links and stuff. Good morning, Liam. Hope you're doing well. Samantha, same to you. Excuse me. Okie dokie. This can go over there. And this can go over there. Not that. This. Listen to me, computer. Do what I want, not what I'm telling you. Alrighty. Excuse me. Huge dinosaur. Fat cats are always good to snuggle with. Unless they're angry. They're not so much. Shadow. Morning, morning. Postmatic. Same to you. Good morning. Yamashisha. Greetings, greetings. Hello, hello, hello. Morning, Lady Blackwind. Hope you're doing well. I got one sitting behind me staring at me. Not the snuggling kind. The boss, yes, definitely. Quality assurance. Good morning, Tabby Cat. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing as well as can be. As well as can be. Oh. There's coffee. This is weird colored caffeine water. It's got more caffeine in it than a Monster. Tastes like shit, but there's lots of caffeine in it. Or should I say, caffeine-infused not water, because I don't like the taste of water. So this is... I have no idea what this tastes like. It tastes like chemicals. But chemicals are still better than water. One down. One more to go. Ugh. Water in general. Well, today is going to be The Nature of Predators, Book 2, Chapter 1. So, there we go. It's the new series. It's going to replace Accidentally Adopted. Sure, the hydrogen monoxide is a chemical that I'm not particularly fond of, and doesn't naturally occur with caffeine, so... Well, Lady Blackwind, I doubt there would be anything that I would narrate that you wouldn't have read. The only by coincidence series that I've done recently that hasn't been done to death is Accidentally Adopted. Good morning, Lazy. Hope you're doing well. I would imagine Anthony kills thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people a year. In varying degrees. Good morning, Daniel. Hope you're doing well. Nothing I can do about it, James. Nothing I can do, but yes. There's very little barrier to entry. If they get a channel deleted, they could just create a new one. Give me 1 moment. Just moving stuff around on my screen. Waiting for that glorious hydration to hit the vocal cords. See, the problem is it's not finished, Lady Blackwind. I'd like to get into a story when it's either finished or close to completion. So, that's pretty recent that he started that story. I will definitely give it a look, but once it's further along, if not completed. Yeah, well, who knows what the future holds? We could just keep putting one foot in front of the other and try to make it out the other end. Avoid that light which belongs to a train. Try some new things. See where we go. It's not good, huge dinosaur. So I did note, I haven't read Nature of Predators Book 2, but I did notice that it did a lot worse, in general, than the first book. The first book averaging 2,000 to 3,000 upvotes per chapter, when The Nature of Predators 2 was like 400, 500, which is still good. Good morning, Kandaria. Hope you're doing well. I think so too, Postmatic. I think so too. Very difficult to, I suppose, make a sequel, especially with a long gap in between the two. For the same reason, like why I like to have one complete story. When you give there's too much of a gap, people forget, or stop and just continue on with life. In YouTube land, it's called dead subs. So people are sub to you but don't watch your content anymore. Or don't even get recommended content anymore because your viewing patterns changed. Yeah. Well, I mean, he. Sorry, I'm touching the microphone. Survivor Becomes Dungeon went dark for a good while. It came back recently, though. Well, you're one of the few, Kandaria. You're one of the few. Well, I'd say few. But yeah, there has definitely been a very noticeable decline. Now, I don't know if it's specifically AI channels or people are moving on. HFY content's no longer hitting the spot. It's not really easy to figure that out. Good night, Lady Blackwind. Hope you sleep well. Fantastic dreams of whatever it is you dream about. Electric sheep, definitely. I have no idea, Postmatic. Probably more than you'd think, because there's quite a few. Fair enough, lady. Fair enough. Yeah. So, I mean, there's quite a few older science fiction enjoyers in the audience, so they'll probably get that. No, thank you, Kandaria, for the kind words. Very much appreciated. I think that happened to a lot of people, Lazy. I don't know what the answer to that is. But at least the streaming offers something slightly different. So we'll see how far we can take that. It's a good story. Yes, it's a good story. Okie dokie. I'm going to start narrating. Oh, big yawn. Your greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators, Book 2. If you are interested in this series, there is a playlist listed down below. If you are interested in the series, there is a just latest narration of the web Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators, Book 2. If you are new to this series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you head over there and show the author some love and give it an update if you like it. Anyways, on to the story. Chapter 1. Memory transcription subject, Tassie Bisson, scientist. Date, standardized human time, March 13th, 2160. Attempts to send messages and search the sky's radio signals for alien life forms usually entail a quiet day at the office. I was one of the permanent experts on the Bissums. I was one of the preeminent experts on how Bissums would react to first contact scenario, having written several papers on the subject. The protocols that Fishing for Alien Intelligence, FIA. The protocols that Fishing for Alien Intelligence, FAI, had were created by me and a few veteran leaders from the institution's founding. It had always been a dream and a passion that consumed me, imagining what could be up in the stars. Would extraterrestrials be like us, or so radically different that we couldn't fathom it? Did they share our curiosity? If they contacted us in a non-aggressive manner, it had to be due to an interest in our people. What could they teach us if they were able to communicate in a tangible way? Of course, I imagined that first contact would be identifying a radio signal or a garbled attempt to respond to our calls into the void, detected from a neighboring star system. It had been a few decades since my nation, Lastman, launched the FAI program and began sending probes throughout our local planets. It would have been possible for It would have been possible for signals to reach the stars within a few decades of light travel, assuming it had been blotted out by dust clouds and cosmic radiation. As much as my childhood fantasies loved to toy at my mind, they were just that, fantasies. Aliens landing on a polar subspecies ice shelf made a great thumbnail for a science fiction movie, but space was too large to traverse distances in a lifetime. If there were extraterrestrials capable of reaching our star system, their technology would have to be so far beyond our own. There would be no telling what they were capable of. I imagine various nations would be pleased. I imagined various nations wouldn't be pleased with being entirely at their mercy. I had no idea what was going to convey. Being entirely at their mercy. I had no idea what was going on when a convoy of military vehicles trundled up to our observatory, and Bissam's decked flipper to toe in combat gear barreled in front of the door, barking orders and demanding that everyone abandon their workstation. My first thought was that one of the Kale's cultists had infiltrated our space program and was attempting to sabotage our search of the stars. What was I supposed to think? That morphed into confusion when a soldier grabbed me as I exited and announced, "She's Dr. Tassie, sir," then shoved me into the back of a military vehicle without any explanation. There was no way they suspected me of being an extremist or a saboteur. As I protested with indignant questions about my rights, a hardened face shushed me from the adjacent seat. General Naltor, his General Naltor, his tag read. The name jogged my memory, suggesting that he was someone far up the chain of command. My eyes widened once I remembered the full story. Naltor had been one of the first Selma, the Arctic subspecies, to defect from the South Pole's ancient kingdom. When we received independence from the tropical Vertrella's primary power, we'd invited all subspecies to live under our dome. Few that weren't Ritala took us up on the offer. Naltor was a trailblazer. Bissam history was complicated, with the major powers still reading from the global war, and the three subspecies bearing major physiological differences that kept us apart. It was part of the reason I'd concluded that my paper that we weren't ready for contact with aliens. I wasn't certain that we'd be able to present a unified front and to make a positive, irrevocable first impression on visitors. Perhaps part of the reason my fantasy persisted, occupying my waking thoughts, was the wish that some foreign power would descend and enlighten us. I focused my gaze on Naltor, trying to prevent my mind from wandering. What the feck is going on? Why is a politically important general here? After your goons abducted me, I civilian. After your goons abducted me, a civilian. I swear I heard your soldiers shutting down all communications and ordering the other FAI scientists to stay locked down indefinitely. We've done nothing wrong. That's... Oh yes, always tongue-twister names, Lord Volpex. As long as it's only 2 or 3 syllables, we're good. It's nothing that you've done, Dr. Tassie. The Salmon general was much taller than me, and his features much more rotund, but I could recognize a hint of panic in his eyes. I need your expertise. We have a situation. Where are you taking me? To these coordinates, Naltor answered, pointing to a highlighted map dot on his tablet. Approximately 2 hours ago, a signal was transmitted through our encryption to the highest entities in our government. All analysis shows that it's from the deepest recesses of the solar system. Let that Let that sink in. Unless this is a fascinating hoax by a jealous rival, we believe that it's not from us, not bison in origin. I froze in place, uncertain how to react to the very news that I'd been waiting for my entire life. It was too good to be true. Surely it would be disproven somehow. A space probe being hacked, or a rival power bouncing transmissions off our satellites. My first thought would have been that it was a natural phenomenon, except for the fact that it is purposeful targeting belayed intelligence. There was so much to digest in what General Naltor told me, from the signal senders being able to crack military-grade encryption like it was nothing, to the possibility of them being present in our solar system. This felt surreal, like one of the dreams I wish I wouldn't wake up from at night. The analysis must have determined that the signal's origin is close by, since Naltor didn't say deep space. Since Naltor didn't say deep space, had they come here looking for us, or maybe they've located us by accident and have been studying us? I sucked in a shaky breath, overwhelmed by the moment's gravity. Overwhelmed by the moment's gravity. Not bison in origin. Well, I'm at a loss for words. I'm not sure that we're ready for this, General. But we have to get this right. The first thing that we should do is notify the Tessia, the Vetrila. The first thing that we should do is notify the Tessia, the Veritala. Vritala. The first thing. Yeah, drives me up the wall, huge dinosaur. That's why I mostly play single-player games. The first thing that we should do is notify the Tessia, the Vritala, and the Salva nations. All of the subspecies need to put aside our differences. We have to work together on this. We can't keep foreign powers out of this. We're already sending a message through diplomatic channels. The fact is, these aliens contacted us. There's no reports of the others receiving any communications, Naltor responded. The faction that preaches bison unity, and that isn't divided. First contact's meeting is something that we were meant to handle, though we must be vigilant. Vrana is our planet, and she needs protection. I'm concerned about allowing the aliens to trespass in our airspace, with whatever weapons and diseases they might have. Slow down. Trespass in our airspace? What the feck are you talking about? Is that why we were speeding off to some point on a tablet? Yeah. Yeah. When the message was decoded, it was in binary. Numbers, Tassie. It was coordinates to the Grey Basin. We weren't sure whether or not... We weren't sure about whether or not to bring FAI into the loop. But we couldn't have this spreading to the public yet. We don't know what they want. So we had to scramble spy. Blah, 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 blah. We don't know what they want. So we had to scramble snipers, a defense response. We're just hoping their message means they're sending a greeting party and not ramming relativistic weapons down our beaks. We don't know anything about their intentions, who or what they are, and what kind of who or what they are, and what kind of threat they constitute. One thing at a time. We don't know that they constitute a threat at all. I can hear the panic in your voice, but that is not the mentality that we should have. I don't like the idea of greeting them with a military entourage. I don't like the idea of greeting them with a military entourage, after all. I don't like the idea of greeting them with a military entourage at all, especially after they found such a simple, beautiful way to communicate. It's obvious they want to talk to us. We should view this as an opportunity to learn things that are beyond the scope of our knowledge. This will be a defining moment in the Bessim history. We don't know. We don't know that they don't constitute a threat, and I'm not willing to take that gamble. I respect your optimism, but I'm not in the business of optimism. Let me ask you, Doctor, what happened to Nelman's natives when the Selmar and the Vitala showed up? They're not around to tell you anymore. What I see is that there are natives now. What I see is that we are the natives now, and they are the ones washing ashore. We, in Lassam, might be the first ones whose lives and livelihoods they want to take, because we're the peaceful ones. Discomfort bubbled in my gut with that unpleasant theory between us. Let's not start with worst-case scenarios. This is an advanced race who went out of their way to contact us, and who do not seem hostile. Space is a lot further distance to travel than an ocean. Yet, they're here, Dassie, and no, I don't want to shoot them down. Don't risk pissing them off. So I have to wait and find out. We're right where they asked us, because we have no choices, and I don't like that. You wrote the first contact protocol. Tell me, how we fucking do this? What do we even say? I don't know. Though I'm delighted to be a part of this. We need to extend our flipper in peace if anyone does arrive. We don't know what those coordinates mean. While they would be perfect to land a ship, they could be sending down a probe or other message. Perhaps they want to establish a radio link there. Whatever they send the solar system message from, it might not even be manned. Okay, let's assume that we do talk to them, one way or another. Now the fact do we extend peaceful sentiments to aliens? How do we communicate and avoid being misunderstood? I was struggling to conjure up a plan of action, even as our dance grew closer to the Grey Basin. No matter how worried General Neltor was about leaks, I wished he'd brought a few other FAI scientists into the loop. It was concerning how the military was suppressing information, as well as any chance that we'd notify the Bison populace. The internet would make it too easy for this to spread, though I wasn't sure how they'd handle a stray camera capturing a strange craft landing, or videos of FAI staff being locked up by armed personnel. Rumors would get out, one way or another. It was the handling that left me alarmed about how Lossman's government would address the visitors. The fact that our nations mistrust each other was an issue, but my country's fear towards aliens and over our own people's reactions didn't assure me that they'd make sound judgments. This wasn't something that we could afford to bungle. While I'd love to believe that the extraterrestrials had peaceful sentiments, offending or antagonizing them, could have catastrophic consequences for our civilization. I wished I had more time to plan this process, but I figured that we needed to start with a small gesture. It must not be anything that can be misinterpreted, no matter how simple it means is to us. No matter how simple its meaning is to us. That rules out any of our emotional cues and nonverbal. It's important to define our own assumptions and avoid falling into those pitfalls. Language was the primary issue with communication, given that, for all we knew, they might not even have verbal language. The aliens had shown us a roadmap through their usage of binary, reflecting that they understood both mathematics and computers. It wasn't impossible. They were AI. With that in mind, but I didn't address that possibility for my sanity. Or using numerals wouldn't be plausible. We could communicate in groupings of dots to form common ground, assuming that they were organic life forms. Mirroring body language was inadvisable. We wouldn't know what it meant, or how it played into their potential hierarchy. Auditory and luminescent stimuli might work, except that we didn't know if they would generate an adverse reaction. In essence, all I had was a basic way to demonstrate numbers, drawing rudimentary pictures on a chalkboard, perhaps teaching them a few simple words in the process, and a prayer to Hearse that his will would save us. Wonderful. Please tell me that you've please tell Please tell me that you've thought to bring along some kind of whiteboard. I breathed a sigh of relief as Naltor signaled the affirmative with his beak toss. I would start simple. We can draw pictures of ourselves standing beside them and hope they grasp that is friendship. Maybe count out numbers with dots and teach them our numerals. Show our understanding of mathematics as an expression of sapience. Selma blinked. The Selma general blinked with flustered expression. I don't have anything better. I'm leaving full discretion to you, Tassie. I'll be right beside you, of course, but I want you to take the lead. Anything you need, you have authorization to ask for. In that case, I'll take a blank check bonus from the government. If you find a way to communicate with aliens, I could probably almost get you that. Good luck, Doctor. We're all rooting for you, and we all want to keep Ivana. We all want to keep Ivana safe. I know, General. Let's just not be afraid of them until we see what they want. That's assuming that we interpreted their binary correctly. The numbers could have meant something else entirely. We're assuming they think the same as us. There are too many variables involved with this entire affair. I wish these people would just leave. We're not equipped for something like this. We never would be, but we've found ourselves in a position. Please try to keep calm. That's the best way we can show our peaceful intentions. Naltor ducked his beak, an acknowledgement. Naltor ducked his beak in acknowledgement, trying to hide how his wings were trembling. It was rare to see the Arctic inclined Selma shivering on a temperature continent. On our temperate continent. Yet I knew it was because this proud man was petrified. For my part, I was both nervous and excited. The endless possibilities were running amok in my head, 1,000 implausible scenarios that I pictured time and again. If these beings were hostile out of the gate, I recognized there was nothing that we could do. Fretting about it wouldn't change their intentions. Always assuming a worst-case scenario meant that we'd never waddle into any ocean of knowledge. It was against the spirit of curiosity. Of all the instances I imagined, it was never that the non-bison intelligence would be hostile. Perhaps because I always thought the brutish colonizers... Perhaps because I always thought the brutish colonizations that transpired on our world were the fool's errands. Let's hope my one assumption, that an advanced society would feel the same, is correct. It must be. My primary concern was that I would make the mistake of ripple effects on our planet. My primary concern was that I would make a mistake with ripple effects on our planet's interstellar relations. Bearing the full responsibility for introducing bison races to aliens was a daunting task. There'd been no warning or prep time, as I'd been ripped away from safety on my desk. This was a critical moment for our species. What I did today could define our very future, and I didn't take that reality lightly. There was no telling how long we'd wait for them, what we'd discover, or whether they'd already sent something to our location millions of years ago. Anything was possible. But I was ready. My flipper latched around the vehicle's door handle, and I hopped out onto the rocky ground. Warm air circulated around me, saving me from the chill of nerves running down my spine. I cast my gaze up at the sky as the convoy skidded to a halt. General Naltor joined me, though at my Space penguins. Bloop. General Nalto joined me, though, at my urging, he prevented the armed personnel from disembarking. I knew snipers were monitoring the location, but at least this way, Bisoms with the assault weapon wouldn't be the first thing visible to the alien surveillance. I was preparing to sit back and wait for as many hours as necessary for a slight sign, but it only took a few minutes for the fateful moment to arrive. My beak parted in awe when the grey silhouette pierced the skies, descending from the light explosions from its thrusters. Naruto looked like he could barely resist calling the anti-aircraft weapons, since the vessel hadn't registered on his radar. The aliens must have been monitoring this location for our arrival via satellite imaging, or something that gave them a view from space. Our analysts were correct about their message being coordinates in our geomapping system. Our analysts were correct about their messages. Our analysts were correct about their message being coordinates in our geomapping system. A thought that only just dawned on me. For why would Lassian military's interpretation should have been absurd? There was no time for that thought, and the implications it carried to sink in. Our greeting party was going to discover firsthand just how much these creatures knew about Bisoms, and how long they'd been observing us in mere seconds. The vessel's landing gear had touched down on the flat, rocky surface, sitting for a few moments while its propulsion systems cooled off. A ramp opened from its belly, and I approached with intrigued, inspired caution. Naruto couldn't resist calling in the soldiers after seeing the movement. I was horrified, as twitchy, flippant servicemen trained guns on the platform from close range. But there was nothing I could do to get the general to back off. Hopefully, the aliens would forgive that transgression. The lower limbs of three beings, who seemed to be from drastically different species, appeared at the bottom of the ramp. Their movements were slow, but with deliberate progress, and their features were cloaked beneath spacesuits. I took the time to soak in everything that I could gather about their life forms. I took the time to soak in everything that I could about their forms. These were organic life forms, similar to us, with an anatomy that was similar to us. These were organic life forms similar to us, with an anatomy that was recognizable in many ways. Each of the creatures had two legs for bipedalism, two manipulator limbs, and a head atop their torso. Interestingly, none of them resembled Bisoms in the sense of looking avian. They seemed more like mammals than beings with wings. I could see the tallest alien leading the way, with long, flexible appendages and nimble digits beneath its gloves. The creature with stout legs, and extra space to accommodate a seemingly puffy spine, followed the lumbering being. The final member of the three was the only one that had a spot for a tail built into its suit, and it seemed both the shortest and the slowest of the posse. It was impossible to discern the features of any of their craniums, hidden between opaque spherical masks. Questions raced in my mind, since it was evident there were different species. Questions raced in my mind, since it was evident these were different species. Did multiple sapient races evolve on the same planet, resulting in even starker differences between the bison? Did multiple sapient races evolve on the same planet, resulting in even starker differences than between bison subspecies? Was there something else at play here entirely? Who were they, and what did they want? How did they plan to approach the first contact? How did they plan to approach first contact? Once they reached the bottom of the ramp, and would General Nelson's army scare them off? Despite the tremendous uncertainty, I found myself wandering closer to the visitors, until I stood right where the ramp met rocky ground. The aliens halted a flipper's length away from me, seeming to size me up. I could feel the tension from the Lassian I could feel the tension from the Lassian military, as their weapons barrels kept watching over the first interaction. My heart was hammering in my chest, desperate to find out what would happen. However, the next occurrence was about as shocking of an outcome as I could fathom. The tall creature turned its head slightly, as if microphone projected a gravelly voice from inside the helmet. Greetings from the people of the Sapient Coalition. We come in peace. I nearly tipped over in disbelief, while gasps sounded among the military observers. The aliens had greeted us in perfect writ, our language. That should not have been possible. End of chapter. Ba-doop-doo. Music up. And updoot. Adding in my own sound effects. So when I first started playing World of Warcraft, many, many years ago, right back in the beginning, South Africa didn't have servers. Technically, Europe didn't even have servers back then. And the only way that we could get a group of friends, and the only way we could get keys to log into the servers was one of the guys had family in the States, I think, or a friend. So we gave him cash, and then he converted it into dollars, put it into an envelope, and sent it. Physically sent it. And then the friend in the States went and bought the World of Warcraft packs, and then mailed the keys, SMS them or email. So that's how I got my first WoW account. The ping was horrible. It was like an average ping of 1,500. But still, enjoyable. I played it on and off for many years. But when it becomes like a second job, it's like, well, I've got a primary job. Why am I doing this thing that's like a second job? Trying to remember what year we played. Well, whatever the year was that it released publicly, that's the year we started. I think within 6 months of it going live. Alright, let's move on to the next chapter. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators 2. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Memory transcription, subject, Tassie Bison Scientist. Date, standardized human time, March 13th, 2160. The alien stood in silence after pronouncing those series of words in our dialect, waiting as we processed its message. Its two partners stood behind it, but the shortest one especially seeming differential. I gawked at the visitors, setting aside all thoughts of approaching them with numbers and a slow exchange of vocabulary. Some of the clicks sounded strange from its vocal cords, reverberating with strength and power, but the usage was spot on. We needed to have a way to respond to them now, and I'd never even thought of what to say. It had been responsible. It had been a possibility that I ruled out as fantastical, imagining how different they would be. What was I supposed to think of them, knowing our language? They must either be able to learn unfathomably quickly through some kind of cognitive transference, or they'd been monitoring us for quite a while. The latter seemed the most plausible, but then again, this entire premise of the scenario shouldn't have been plausible. If they had been present, observing us like our scientists would track a school of fish, that, coupled with their words, meant that they didn't bear us any ill will. It was possible they'd been here for a much longer duration, watching our entire societal history play out. These were advanced life forms after all, with capabilities that allowed them to travel light years through space. Perhaps they were progenitors of life in the star system. For all we knew, these were our very creators. I thought about the entity's name, the Sapient Coalition. It sounded like an alliance of numerous species, and it didn't follow that they'd evolved in the same world. Wait, were they inviting us to join a galactic community? We've been in our best behavior. Nalthor needs to call off his guns and play nice. We're directly communicating with multiple worlds. Welcome to Avrana, I managed, a stupefied croak, and barely escaped my I managed a stupefied croak that barely escaped my beak. We are honored to have you here. May I ask how you know our language? Several barks escaped the tall, slender figure's chest. We got your messages and observed your world for several years to assess the best way to approach contact. Don't worry, we're all familiar with your culture, so you won't cause us any offense. Might I say, Journey Beneath the Ice is a great movie. General Nalthor blinked in confusion. You watched Journey Beneath the Ice? Ugh, a guilty pleasure. I can sense the nasty looks from my colleagues, but we humans, we like to keep it light, forgive me. To answer your question, we do have language model-driven translator technology, which decoded your 4 primary languages. However, to avoid any misunderstandings, mistranslations, and clunky machines, our team learned to speak Rit fluently. It took 10 years. It's really hard to teach those damn machines idioms and wordplay, as I am sure you, a species that's had an internet for decades, can imagine. They are nothing like I imagined they would be. Wow, I need to sit down. We can't imagine, I managed, trying not to swoon. You spent 10 years of your life learning our language just to speak to us with minimal confusion. We're honored. We're honored. We are honored to be here. This is the Coalition's first time initiating a first contact scenario, so forgive us if we're not the smoothest at it. The puffy The puffy-backed creature spoke in a lighter voice. I think that we should introduce ourselves and our respective species, Dustin. The tall creature paused, thinking for several seconds. Yes, I think we should. I am Dustin Curtis. I am a xenobiologist. I am Dustin Curtis, and I am a xenobiologist. Discovering life forms from across the galaxy has been my calling. I confess, I'm itching to get a look at your wildlife up close. Once we become friends, as you might be cued in on, as you might have cued in on, I'm a human from the planet Earth. I'm Nulia. I have a doctorate in sociology, so let's say I'm the one who's analyzed your national relations. I'm a Gojit, technically from the cradle, but I've lived in Skulgar since I was a small child, the mid-sized one chimed in. The shortest alien hesitated before piping up, tentatively. I am Heliska. I am here because my species is the only semi-aquatic race the sapient... I'm here because my species is the only semi-aquatic race in the sapient coalition, so we share your love for water. For what it's worth, the humans, despite being land mammals through and through, adore the ocean too. My species, the Thafki, and we live in... My species is the Thafki, and we live on the commune. Our homeworld was destroyed long ago. Your homeworld was destroyed? My gasp of horror escaped a moment later, as I tried to imagine Ivrana just being gone. The way Heliska said it so calmly and concerning. The way Heliska said it was so calmly was concerning. I didn't know what the commune was either. Forgive me if I'm being intense. Forgive me if I'm being insensitive, but what happened? Did someone attack your planet? General Naltor asked, disregarding all notions of tact. Heliska's tail twitched with sadness. If I told you what happened without context, it would alarm you. Let me clarify that the species that did that to my homeworld has been isolated from the rest of the galaxy, and are monitored by the SC. I'm afraid my planet was bombed, and our old allies did nothing to help us. Humans rescued some of our, hostages, and have helped us build an official commune as something to call our own. It's a long story, and I don't want to sour first contact. You're not souring anything. We appreciate your honesty, and I am sorry that's happened to the Thafki. I jumped in hastily, feeling a mix of shock and sympathy at the supporting story. I am worried by much of this history you've described. Naltor's eyes narrowed with suspicion. I am glad that my scientific friend shares my concerns. I also noted it was mentioned that you never initiated a first contact, despite the fact that you all know each other. Am I correct in assuming that you had some major conflict? You can say that again, Dustin muttered. The SC is a newer organization. I'm afraid the galaxy's recent history is troubled, but I assure you that we've come here in the hopes of starting something better. It's of the utmost importance to us that we help you, yet minimize our impact on your culture. We wanted to come to you with honesty, but also not overwhelming you with stunting your individuality. It was interesting to hear the human address Naltor's colonization fears by expressing that they wanted to avoid any Nullman situation. The Selmar general folded his flippers in front of his thick blubber, scrutinizing the aliens with caution. He hesitated before signaling for military assets to stand down. I noticed the visitor's posture relaxed. From what they just described about there being a major conflict in the stars, I imagined they would recognize any type of weapon. It wasn't unlikely that they knew about our own history, and had studied our military from above as well. Part of me was disappointed that these species were plagued by the same strife up in the stars that we were down here. What was the cause of this major conflict? One so horrible that entire worlds were destroyed. What brought the war to an end, and what happens if the quarantine species gets past the sapient coalition? The positives were that these beings were interested in communicating with us, and had expressed multiple times that they didn't mean us any harm. While I could tell that the General Naltor wanted to press them on this While I could tell that General Naltor wanted to press them on this war issue and gather the entirety of the details, I wanted to learn more about why they decided to contact Lassenman before any other nation. There was evidence this wasn't by chance. The aliens had found our probe, and Nulia indicated that they... Isn't Nulia the name of the little girl from the first one? And Nulia indicated that they... Nulia. I don't remember. It's been a while. The aliens had found our probe. The aliens had found our probe, and Nulia indicated that they knew our factional intended river. The aliens had found our probe, and Nulia indicated they knew our factional. The aliens had found our probe, and Nulia indicated they knew our factional tendencies. The aliens had found our probe, and Nulia indicated they knew our factional tendencies. There was a great deal that they could teach us. There was a great deal that they could teach Bisons, even if their minds were less beyond us than I envisioned. But we'd have to find a way to juggle competing interests on Evrana first. The last thing we needed was to be at each other's throats. It would take much for the Salma, Vitrala, and Tasia nations to turn on their counterparts. To turn on their counterparts, with literal visitors from another world. Some naive voice in my brain prayed to hers that we would be that we would see the folly in our squabbles. However, if that meant that we just unify our guns against other planets, as it seemed what had happened amongst these aliens, I wasn't sure that was any different. I hoped that we could find a way to make the Sapient Coalition into friends of Bisons from all subspecies, and to make them not regret opening up the galactic community. There were thousands of questions about much lighter topics at the tip of my tongue. How many aliens were out there? What were their cultural and anatomical quirks, their greatest achievements and homeworld marvels? How did their spacefaring technology grant them the means to violate the speed limit of the universe? Or did it? Dustin, Nudia, and Heliska couldn't have known about FAI's messages any earlier than 2 decades ago, no matter how close to the stars they were. That meant that they were either within a few light years or our space. That meant that they were either within a few light years of our space, accounting for the signal's dispersal time and their travel, or they had FTL mechanisms. "Excuse me, miss," Heliska prompted. "What is your name?" Blood rushed to my forehead from embarrassment. "I apologize. I got lost in my thoughts. There's so many things I could ask you. I'm Dr. Tassie from FAI, and this is General Naltor of the Lassian military." "Dr. Tassie, don't worry. Dr. Tassie, don't worry. There'll be time to ask us absolutely anything you want." Dustin chuckled. "I'd like to thank your military friend for not shooting us." Nudia sighed in exasperation. "Don't joke about that." "Oh, I'm not joking. We definitely spooked these guys. I think we still have. I thought it'd be a simple invitation, if they wanted to meet with us. I'm sorry for any alarm our presence has caused you. We're sentimental bastards. We like to do things personal, face to face. If you, for some reason, want us to leave, just ask, and we'll go right now." "Do not leave," Naltor's word. Do not leave. Naltor's words were all but an order, and I cringed at how he spoke to the aliens. "Why Lassman? Why did you pick us?" "You had the space program, and you're also the closest thing to a union of all Bisons," Heliska answered. "The Confederation of Brittle and the Marili huddled them. the Confederation of Rytal, and the Molay Huddledom haven't given a shit about space in over a century. Never thought I'd hear a casual profanity at first contact, but let's just waddle through it. We thought about landing in Nullman, since it's off limits, forbidden for any settlements because of Since it's off limits, forbidden for any settlements because of the Null Armistice, Nulia remarked. That would be neutral ground, but it is also a sore spot to start our relations. We wouldn't want to risk you fighting about whether to return at all. Dustin made a strange gesture with his appendage. Hiliska didn't mention the third grouping, so I feel obliged to touch on it. We're aware of how well the Tessia nomads react to visitors trying to land on Alch, and that's with other bisims. They're reclusive in the best of times, so I can't say how they'd take to us. We like our spaceships without an ICBM in the hull. You're smart on that front. Good morning, Phyllis. Hope you're doing well. You're smart on that front. Unpredictable, shifty facts do what they want, when they want, Nalton mumbled. I shot the Selma general a concerned look. Let's not refer to other bisims that way around the aliens. Common sense, they're here to speak to all of us. We are. I'll tell you what the very wise leader told our species when we bumbled out into deep space. When we bumbled out to deep space, we're not here to take sides, show favoritism, or meddle in your conflicts. Dustin ducked his head, rubbing his digits against the back of his neck in a self-soothing way. Sort it out amongst yourselves, but you get one embassy. Evrana is one entity to us, because we don't have the diplomatic bandwidth for anything more. The dog is on the charge. It's attacking. Yeah, we've been having lots of problems with notifications going out and stuff. But yeah, we've been consistently streaming for what, 2 months now? 3 months? I think 2 months. 1 month. I can't. For anything more. Lastman has been seeking Bison unity for years, but we can't control the others, Naltal spat. I don't think we need to decide on any hierarchies right now, I interceded hastily, not wanting to have the aliens believe that we couldn't get along. It had been kind of Dustin not to judge us for warring against them. It had been kind of Dustin to not judge us for warring amongst ourselves, but it seemed his kind had moved past that at first contact. We needed to as well. Question on the spacesuits. If you don't mind, is our environment not breathable for you, or is it to prevent microorganism contamination? Dustin and Hiliska seemed to share a glance between the helm. Dustin and Hiliska seemed to share a glance beneath their helmets, while Mulia tried to give the appearance of being distracted. My innocuous question, to pivot away from the topic of bison acronomy, seemed to have touched a nerve. It was possible the aliens looked drastically different from us, and were conceding their anatomy to avoid frightening us. They can have 6 eyes, no skin, or something altogether horrifying. They also might not want to tip off their vulnerabilities, if it had to do with the toxin in our world's atmosphere. It was as if the human was a bit nervous. Good morning, Chomper. Hope you're doing well. I is be doing great. Well, as well as can be. Thank you for asking. But nervous. What is he frightened of? That we'll weaponize whatever we learn about his species. If it was a microorganism... If it was just microorganisms, he'd say it. Microbes can't jump between alien species. Biology varies too much from world to world, Nulia answered. It appears no... It appears no... Go read. It posed no risk to you. The proof is the hundreds of years that we've been in contact with each other, though we ran simulations just to be certain. Hiliska thumped her tail on the ground. Your atmosphere is breathable to us as well. We're all dependent on oxygen. If we landed in Merley Huddledom territory on the poles, that would pose an environmental hazard. None of us are suited to that kind of cold. But other than that, no standard environment on Ivana should be dangerous to us. Dustin stiffened, digits curling with reluctance. Yep, always the microorgan. Always with the worst things. It's curling with reluctance. It feels early to take off the suits, before you've truly gotten to know us. We're asking because we truly wish to get to know you, I prompted. You said yourself that your kind likes relations personal, face to face, yet you've obscured your features. It's, complicated. I think that Heliska and Nudia should start. Nudia hesitated, before popping off her helmet and sliding out of the suit. Thick, brown fur enveloped her features, along with some sort of spikes attached to her spine. The claws are both slender and lengthy, presenting an additional natural threat. It didn't seem that she could sprint well, given how stout her legs were. There was nothing especially alien about her, but the same quantity and layout of features as standard life in our homeworld. Her brown irises were warm as they stared back at us. Chomper, humans don't make good familiars, book isn't finished, and the princess and the human book 2 isn't finished. So both of those, the books haven't been finished yet, so just waiting for those to happen. I think, this is off the top of my head, that princess and the human is on a hiatus. And I'm not sure how far book 3 of Humans Don't Make Good Familiars. So we're doing Nature of Predators Book 2, because that's complete. With the same quantity and layout of features as standard life in our homeworld. Her brown irises were warm as they stared back at us, reflecting sunlight with cool warmth. Heliska risked a glance at the enraptured soldiers, many of who were Many of who were as absorbed in this pivotal moment as I was. She shimmied out of her own suit, standing well below the Gojit. The Thafki had a bluish-grey coloration, twitching whiskers atop cream patches on her chin, and webbed feet not dissimilar to our own. That matched the story of her semi-aquatic origins. The lithe form of her body and tapered shape of her tail were perfect for swimming. Overall, these two creatures were agreeable to the eyes, which meant the problem must be with Dustin. What was the human concerned about? Cheers, Chomper. Good luck. Dustin's hands drifted up to his helmet, and Naltor scrutinized him as he slowly removed his helmet. The creature's rosy lips wobbled with nerves as he trained two eyes directly at me. This species had a narrow scope of vision, best suited to depth perception. I did note how large an unpigmented portion I did note how large the unpigmented portion of the sclera was. Curious. His other features were even more peculiar, with massive triangular nose just jutting out of the center of his face. Just ears. His ears were circular, with cartilage folded in swirling patterns that I'd never seen before. There was no fur in his face, or seemingly further down his neck, but tangled brown hair sprouted atop his head. He looks the most alien, but not especially frightening. His skin looks soft and delicate. It didn't escape my notice how Heliska and Nudia seemed relieved when none of us reacted poorly to Dustin. The human's eyes fluttered, warming as he saw that he wasn't being rebuffed. Granted, most of my wild assumptions about these aliens had been wrong so far, since this hadn't been anything like my imagined first contact scenarios. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had judged his species for something. This trepidation about merely showing his face wasn't natural, It's nice to meet all of you, I offered, in the most gracious voice I could muster. Naltor, what would you say to extending these aliens a proper welcome? General Naltor's beak parted with alarm. I would say that if we organize the necessary preparations and then transport these aliens somewhere, we can host festivities. There's no way to stop it from getting out to the public. We wanted to have the opportunity to announce the news yourselves, but if I may, there's going to find her. We wanted you to have the opportunity to announce the news yourselves. But if I may, they're going to find out eventually, Dustin commented. Forgive my forwardness, but we're not going to play part of hiding anything from the masses. It goes against our founding principles. Aliska lashed a tail. There's nothing to fear. People adjust more quickly than you might think to new reality. You'd be amazed at what they can adjust to. Believe me, I would know. I agree that we should be transparent with the public, sir. I raised my flippers for emphasis, hoping to show hoping to show the sincerity of my words. This is something all Bisons have the right to know. I understand that you wanted to protect the people at first, but I don't believe our visitors are a threat. I suppose live streaming it on the internet would make the dumb fecks in the other nations less inclined to do anything stupid, Naltor grumbled. What's that look for? What's that look for, Tassie? All right. I shouldn't have said dumb fecks. I meant the nice people in other nations. The human flashed his teeth briefly, earning a lingering glance from me. They weren't impressive dental structures, but it was an odd expression to display at this time. I was keen on learning the aliens' nonverbals, although it was helpful that they had learned our own to avoid any misunderstandings. What appeared to be a threat displayed by our zoological standards was an example of why we needed to learn theirs. Dustin covered his mouth with his sheepish expression, noticing that Naltor had returned to an alert posture. I apologize. My species has the odd habit of curving our lips upward when we're amused or happy. It's a sign of submissiveness and goodwill, believe it or not. It's instinctual, so despite how other species admonish us, it's difficult to control. I can put my helmet back on if it makes you more comfortable. I can put the helmet back on if it makes you comfortable, the xenobiologist said. I raised a flipper to reassure him. Nonsense. You're an alien. Of course, you evolved with different expressions than us. Now that we know what it means, I'm sure Naltor won't take it as a challenge. The general scoffed. I was not. The general scoffed. I was not going to contest the alien's strength, even if he was provoking me. I wasn't going to let myself seem intimidated. Why don't we bring these aliens onto a transport, make an announcement to the public, and set up a feast replete with the finest delicacies? A feast? Aliska whispered, with a tone that seemed fearful. We should stay that offer. We don't know how the aliens' customs around mealtime, or whether they'd be able to eat our food. It is a bit presumptive, Naltor, I said hastily, wanting to cover whatever faux pas we committed against the Thapki. Perhaps they don't like the excess. Perhaps they don't like the excess of wasting food, or they're private. Maybe they only share food with close friends, or maybe they don't eat at all. Dustin shot the bluish-grey alien a smoldering glare. We know how central fishing is to the bison culture, and how hospitable it is for them to extend an invitation to feast, don't we? Yes, of course we do, the Heliski whimpered. It's no different from the humans, Nudia assured the Thafki quickly. We accept this now, ever since the We accept it. It's no different than the humans. It's no different from the humans, Nudia assured the Thafki quietly. We accept this now, even so. Ever since the deconversions, you know that I'm uncured. Uncured? Deconversions? What the feck are they talking about? I feel there's something I should know about, Gio. I feel there's something I should know about here. General Naruto eyed the visitors with concern, thinking the same thing by my assessment. I didn't mean to cause any offense. I was trying to celebrate your arrival. The human bobbed his head from side to side. No, you didn't cause us any offense. Your invitation was quite kind, and we'll accept it if you're still willing to extend it. There's some, complicated matters that we'll explain to you in due time, but I'd prefer not to get into our full baggage today. But I'd prefer not to get into our full baggage today. What I will say is that none of our allied species subsist solely on meat, so I must ask if it's possible for you to accommodate us with some vegetable fare. I know your bodies aren't adapted for eating it, but... Of course, we should have asked about that. It's hard to think of food as not fish, I responded. There's something much deeper going on here, but I haven't figured out what. We have some sea plants and small selection of land vegetables for our fish farms. That's what we were able to bring on this short notice. It's not a massive selection, but we should have no problem accommodating your needs. Great. Thanks, a queasy-looking Haliska replied. Hesitation flickered in Naruto's eyes, debating whether to press the aliens. I'll make the necessary arrangements. The FAI Convention Center should be perfect. I'm sure the rest of Tassie's fellow scientists will be delighted to chip in. Work shifts be damned. Shall we head to the vehicles? Dustin dipped his head. Lead the way. Face your friends, not food. Lead the way. The Selmo general clasped his cliff. The Selmo general clasped his flippers behind his back and strode over to the convoy that we'd come from. My mind was dazed from everything that had unfolded, but a mystery had made itself plain to me. As tempted as it was to zero in on cultural details, I needed to devote some focus to learning the details of the strange attitudes relating to the human and the feast. End of story. Oh, end of chapter. End of chapter. Alright, I'll be right back in 2 minutes, or less than 2 minutes. I leave you with chair and music. All right. Doggo. Lazy, I did release the compilations onto the main channel. So it's the full first book. It's 100 chapters. Or something like that. It's like, I think, 40 hours of content. Just give me a second. Shall go get you the link. If you are really interested. 184 chapters. But they're all on the main channel. In a compilation form. In a playlist. Handy dandy playlist. Second book is only 100 chapters, so quite a bit shorter than the first book. Which is not necessarily a good or bad thing, it's just a thing. No, okay. The moment I touch the microphone, the dog stops snoring. So I'll hold on to the microphone while I talk. Yuki Yuki. NOP 2-3. Fair enough, James, fair enough. Well, there goes a war crime on its own. We'll see, we'll see. It wasn't really written as a series or multiple stories. It's supposed to be standalone. Just a quick ha-ha. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 3. Memory Transcription Subject. Taylor Trench, Human Colonist. Date, Standardized Human Time, March 13th, 2160. The sound of an alarm clock detonating by my bedside jolted me from my dreamless sleep, much too early. I stumbled over to the sink and brushed my teeth, splashing some water in my face to wake myself up. The grimy mirror showed my binocular eyes, with twinkling blue irises, and the buzz cut attuned to the warm climate of this world. It was cooler and ventilated in the underground caverns, but when I traveled to the surface to hurry off the crev... But when I traveled through the surface to hurry off the crev, it would be punishing, and we couldn't take off the layers for anything. I wondered how I'd gotten settled with the role of payment ambassador in the first place. I hated those fecking aliens as much as anyone. I'd be too much to hope. It'd be too much to hope for that we could just keep to ourselves. It'd be too much to hope for if we could. It'd be too much to hope for that we could just keep to ourselves. We send an ark ship to get away from aliens, and we find more of them, I grumbled, knowing that I'd have to put on a pleasant face in a few minutes. When Ark Ship 3 carried us to this uninhabited, breathable world, I'd been 9 years old. Suffice to say, I barely remembered Earth. We'd kept documentation with us of the threat, just in case future generations forgot why we had to be leery of aliens. Heading to the stars, we found a vast majority of herbivores who despised us and wished us dead. Hundreds of species, all plotting our extinction despite our efforts of peace. The lone other predator, seemingly a rarity, were child-eating monsters, who we wanted nothing to do with either. Despite what those feckwit despite what those crocodile had thought. Interesting, Lacey. I think it is one of the longest series I've got. Actually, no, I think Survivor's Dungeon is also pretty decent in length. But we wanted nothing to do with either. I know when I took down First Contact, that was 300 hours. No, sorry, 150 hours of content. Despite what those feckwit crocodile had thought. Our homeworld and the 10 billion humans we left behind were extinct. Barring a miracle, the Ark ships had been sent out in quiet fashion by the UN to ensure our species' survival, and told never to contact home again. Starting civilization over from scratch with a few thousand people aboard wasn't easy. It was as bad as when our kind almost died on our cradle during the Ice Age. How long would it take us to bounce back to where we were? At least we had our knowledge and technology. We persevered. We preserved our memories and keepsakes in vaults, a mere spectre of what once was. Let's get moving, Taylor. Cherise Benson, a security officer, waved her rifle in a lazy gesture. She was already wearing full concealment gear. Scaly fakers are on the descent from orbit. We don't need more protests from our own people, or for the Xenos to stick around any more than necessary. I pressed a hand to my temple. I'm not looking forward to this. The miners are behind schedule because of the strike, so we have to barter for a few extra days. Damn, militia's already used up all of the last quarter's shipments, and we can't dip into that. Fecking hell. Tell the Crev they'll either get the payments in a few days, or they won't get jack shit. They're the ones profiting off our backs, taking on what they haven't put anything into. Taking what they haven't put anything into, making us hide down here like rabbits in a burrow. I wish I knew what it was like to feel sun on my face, to stand in the rain. Sometimes I wonder what it would. That's our job, Taylor, to stop people from doing something impulsive. Much as I hate those crab bastards, we can't afford to fight them. Better to pay up than to have them kill us or take us from our home. I guess so. Wish we could just... I guess so. Wish that we could get up and leave. But where else are we going to go? There's aliens everywhere. For all we know, the next ones are worse. Given the Federation and the Arxor are out there, that's the truth. Makes the Krev Consortium not seem so bad. Now let's go suit up, before they've got a chance to even wander from... before they even get a chance to wander from the landing pad. The arrangement between the Krev and us felt like it was hanging on by a thread sometimes. But it beat the alternative of having no home or fighting for our lives again. It didn't mean resentment didn't fester. We come to the system as our supplies were running out, and hydroponics contingencies meant to push us further had failed. This world, which we called Tellus, Earth in Latin. This world that we called Tellus, Earth in Latin, was our last hope. This was the place that we had to settle. However, as we aligned our flight path for a landing, a warship dropped out from the gas giant's gravity well and broadcast a message that this was Consortium territory. They demanded that we leave, and he's showing more gusto than prey racers back home. I didn't like those feckers, but they aren't scared of their own shadow or anything. But they aren't scared of their own shadow. If anything, the Krev are emotionless and all business. They've never seemed interested in sharing any details about themselves, either. Knowing how every alien we encountered back in the Orion Arm had reacted, we knew that we couldn't let any other race know what we were. Predators. It would have been our preference to not speak to any aliens at all. But our quick-thinking captain had covered her face with scarves, looking something like a mummy on the call. She pleaded for the Krev to let us land, noting that our supplies were out and that thousands of settlers would die without the planet. Our ship's language modules interfaced during the hail and allowed translator implants on both ends to facilitate communications. It was after a prolonged discussion that the Consortium struck the bargain I was carrying out now. They'd allow us to colonize the world in exchange for a cut of the raw materials unearthed during our efforts. We didn't exactly have a choice. We were desperate, and not... We were desperate, but not in a position to bargain out the terms. Our efforts went to building our city's infrastructure underground, beneath the concealment of overhead soil. This was the only place that we could show our faces. Up on the surface, full disguises were required to avoid our predatory features being spotted through satellite imaging. The security guards locked and clasped on our own inner cloth. The security guards locked the clasp on their own. The security guards locked the clasp on our inner cloth helmet, which looked something like a fencing mask, and that ensured nobody could get the reckless idea to remove it once they got up here. I'd had to put on the full garb now, before the elevator was unsealed. Well, let's hope for the best. I get the sense that we already want us gone. I get the sense they already want us gone. Krev seem to have stick up their ass lately, with their snide comments about our secrecy. I yawned as we strolled past lit interiors, carved into the sides of the cavern, and past several tired people through the cobblestone streets. The subterranean metro was visible behind. The subterranean metro was visible beyond the elevator's sealed gates. It's not like they're forthcoming themselves. Cherise stopped me with a hand, placing a cloth mask over my head and turning the key. You know the drill, Taylor. Time to be Mr. Cordiality. Charm the shit out of them. If anyone can buy us time, it'll be done. Let's get this over with. I unslung the secondary cloth from my shoulder and wrapped it around my forehead and chin for further concealment. Cherise shot a thumbs up at the control room, who watched up on the balcony. There was a buzzing noise as the gate sealing the elevator came undone. I called the lift and shuffled inside as the doors chimed open. My security escort tailed behind me, tapping her fingers on the ascent button. I listened to the whirring noise of the gears as we ascended up through the place of residence we'd carved out. Above ground wasn't populated by many personnel, aside from a handful of top-world farmers and the militia people working with starships. I raised a hand in politeness as I passed a group of service technicians who were tinkering with the gunship's engines. Some days, I wished they'd fire up the guns, charge the incoming rent collector, and tell the Krev that we're gone. Some days, I wished they'd fire up the guns, charge the incoming rent collector, and tell the Krev where to get off. A skull creased my face beneath the mask as I saw the alien ship touching down on our landing pad. Charisse and I quickened our strides to ensure that we were hovering by the alien ship as soon as they disembarked. Yes, yes, this is Book 2 of Nature of Predators, James. Gress, who'd been the Krev's rent collector for the past few years, strolled down the ramp with his usual unfriendly expression. His dark green scales brightened beneath the glow from the star, something we guessed meant that they evolved in the jungle. Gress's lengthy tail curled with distaste, and his tongue flitted with impatience. I found the quirky mammals a bit reminiscent of pangolins. I found the quirky mammals a bit reminiscent of pangolins from Earth. That was what they were called, right? That wasn't too stellar, with knowing things from home, our true home. Gress, how are you doing? I gushed, with fake enthusiasm. The Krev sighed, a bored look on his face. Taylor, is it? It's difficult to recognize you, with you hiding beneath those masks. It's not polite to insult our way of life and our culture. You know we're a private people. That one thing... You know we're a private people. That's one thing to call you. I suppose we should be better. That's one thing to call you. I suppose that we should know better than to ask you to answer basic questions about yourselves. We still don't know who you're dealing with. We still don't know who we're dealing with. Your attitude doesn't seem in the interest. Your attitude doesn't seem in the interests of partnership, Gress. You've benefited from our toiling immensely. I swear I remember that this arrangement was supposed to be temporary. It's starting to feel like it's something... It's starting to seem like it's anything but. Don't you think it's harsh to ask us to pack up and leave overnight? Whatever you think of our ways, humans haven't undermined or harmed you in any way. We have the utmost gratitude for how you've allowed our settlers to make a life for themselves. Why ruin a good thing for both of us? Gress pawed at the ground, scowling. I'd like to be anywhere but here, so let's get a move on it. I don't see the crates ready to load onto the cargo hold. Have you forgotten what day it is? Of course not. Look, you know that we've been reliable. We've never missed any of our days before, which is another reason that you should value how we honor our deals. I'm afraid that we've experienced a setback in our mining efforts, and we need a bit of extra time. Let me get this straight. You people let me land. You people let me land with zero forewarning, then tell me you don't have what I traveled hours to collect. What's owed to us for your land? What's owed to us for our land? I'd like to offer sincere apologies on behalf of humanity. Truly, we are a hard-working people, and I am humiliated to say that we've missed our deadlines. This is a rarity, an anomaly, but in the spirit of reasonable response, Perhaps we can come to an agreement. All we need is a few days, and we can tack on a little extra to make it worth the additional trip. Please, Gress, tell me what the reason is for this delay, and I will consider it. I hesitated, unsure how much Mayor HFY would want me to diverge to the Krev. The only way to ever get promoted away from this detail, perhaps to a leadership role in recognition of my silver tongue, was to stay on the head honcho's good side. This alien probably wouldn't be understanding about a strike due to our laborers resenting the very payments he was here to collect. We were going to have to work overtime just to get enough to pass along to him in a few days. I wasn't sure if I could fulfill the extra, but I needed to throw in something. I needed to sell him a line of total bullshit, since at least these Xenos didn't seem entirely devoid of sympathy. Whatever it takes to make Gress go for it, I'll go over the mines myself and make sure it's delivered. We can't fight them, and we can't leave everything we've got left behind us. I truly hate this, but it gives humanity a chance. We had to replace a lot of our equipment due to safety concerns, and the overhauls took longer than expected. Computer glitches here and there, I fibbed. 3 days should be plenty of time for us to get back on our normal production. How much will it take to right this wrong, Gress? I don't want you feeling cheated or put out. The Krev squinted at me for several seconds. You don't have any materials in surplus to give us now? Not the standard materials we give you, but if there's something else you want, maybe. We can hand over something now. But if there's something else you want, maybe we can hand over something now. I'm telling you, if there was any leftovers that we could give you, we wouldn't be having this discussion. I hate having to ask for charity. As if letting you land on this world wasn't charity enough. You know humans are in your debt. You know we're good for it. In 3 days' time, that's not all that long, in the big picture, and it's nothing worth tearing up a deal that's worked for decades. Decades, without anything going awry. We can come up with an understanding here. Cheers, huge dinosaur. Hope you have a good one. Anything going awry. We can come to an understanding here. I know that you can give us some leniency. One exception. Oh, for feck's sakes, one exception. I want double our usual cut from your squatters in 3 days' time. You better have it. Sharice's hands tightened around her gun. Double, that's a deal, Gress. Thank you for your kindness and understanding. I spoke through gritted teeth. You won't regret your faith in us. I hope you have a safe voyage back home, and we look forward to delivering the goods in 3 days' time. In other words, you want to chase me off. Don't worry, I'd rather be anywhere else than this desolate world, overrun by humans. The Krev stalked back to his ship, keeping one side-facing eye trained on us. Send the word back to your people. We are going to talk about setting an end date to your stay here. I don't care if it's years from now, but you're not staying here forever. I understand, and we can discuss that once we're back on normal footing. Farewell. The Krev wandered back into his vessel, and, with engine still warm, he rocketed up from the landing pad as soon as he reached the cockpit. I watched the alien ship rise into the clouds, grateful that I'd managed to get him to agree to anything at all. Gress hadn't given me the impression that they were willing to cut us any slack. When the interloper vanished up into the atmosphere, I finally allowed my emotions to shine through. I was all smiles, figuratively speaking, to his face, but I wanted to knock that rude prick's lights out. I kicked the sand with my boot as soon as I was certain he couldn't see me. Arseholes. No good, fuckface. Settle down, Taylor. You're just getting yourself worked up, Sharice admonished me. You calm? Yes. Good. Because now it's my turn to get pissed. What the feck were you thinking? Cranking the first shipment out would have been enough. Cranking the first shipment out would have been enough. You're going to have to push the machinery to absolute limits. Pull double shifts to bring 2 times the standard amount. I don't even know if we can do it. We can do it. We'll work the main drill overtime and blast them damn rocks. We'll work the main drill overtime and blast as many damn rocks as humanly possible. I'm not giving those cold fecks any chance to kick us out. All the Krev needs is one perceived slight, and I think they're throwing us out. I can sense it. You can sense it? That's the second time you've said that. I know that we've all been trapped underground for too fucking long, but I think you're losing your mind. I placed my hands on my hips. Sharice, I'm not taking any chances. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's reading people, and Gress is all about done with us. Tellus is our home now. Then we need to find some way to keep our foot in the door. You want humans to break our backs to benefit those lazy feckers, just to keep them from uprooting our lives. What happens if we can't deliver? We'll deliver. Look, I'm not in horrid shape myself. I'm going to go in and supervise. Be ready to jump in as an extra set of hands if needed. Maybe you could send any able-bodied security folks down there as well. We can do this. As a team, nobody is taking our home. I'm not leaving another planet. It'll be over my dead body. The security guard's body language looked exhausted. Fine, Taylor. You win. Just good luck selling this plan to the miners and to Mayor Hathaway. Nothing a few fabrications can't fix. Mayor can't tell him it's for urgent fixes. Mayor can tell him it's for urgent fixes to the military, since we want to be ready to scrap with the Krev. Any luck, and the miners will never know we really sent the ore. And the miners will never know where we really sent the ore. Any luck. Any luck, and the miners will never know where we really sent the ore. Lying. For them, for us. I'm doing my job and buying us time. If anyone else has a better idea, or if the mayor wants to question my judgment, that's his prerogative. I'll do whatever it takes to keep us together. With the last of humanity left around, and I don't want to do anything that would squander that chance. Too many people died. Too many good people died back home. Isn't that the truth? It still blows my mind that they killed all of those people, Charisse murmured. I'll help you and keep my mouth shut, Taylor. But don't think I support this. You better be right. I will be. Now let's get this mines. I will be. Now let's get to the mines and put everyone to work. There's no time to waste. Come on. I hustled back towards the elevator, suppressing my own groan of displeasure at the thought of heading down to the mines. Even with machinery to carry some of the load, it was still a gritty, exhausting job. I was probably going to be a bit sore on shut-eye with the shifts that we need to pull for these quantities of materials. Once we got the Krev off of our backs for the cycle, we could focus on making it to the next payment, with a more reasonable time frame to complete our work. I wasn't sure how I was going to keep the peace between humanity and the consortium, but it would take a great deal of commitment to make this arrangement last much longer at all. End of chapter. Not a problem, Comet. Hope you have a great day. And a great sleep. Alrighty, on to chapter 4. Fair enough, Postmedic. Fair enough. Watching the sunrise is always pleasant. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Book 2, Chapter 4. Memory transcription subject, Taylor Trench, human colonist. Date, standardized human time, March 14th, 2160. With the minimal amount of sleep necessary, I found myself back on the metro train to the mines. Holopad curled in my grasp. Dusty stone walls passed by through the windows, as several weary faces joined me on the daily transport. I kept to myself in the back corner, finding myself listening through earbuds to Noah Williams' speech on the ride over. It always brought me unspeakable sadness to hear the astronaut plead. to hear the astronaut pleading for our lives and trying to convince those monsters that we could be their friends. I wasn't sure why I was putting myself through this, except to remind myself that the Krev weren't that bad. I stared at my empty coffee cup, grateful that someone had the presence of mind to bring along our favorite caffeinated beans. It could be more. It would be a lot more difficult to get up from an early morning on 3 hours of sleep without it. If I wanted the miners not to see me, and by extension Mayor Hathaway, as Krev mouthpieces, it was important that I pitched in for the grueling work. The mayor hadn't seemed pleased when I mentioned that Gress had demanded double the standard due, though he agreed on not telling the miners the reasons for the double shifting. They might find out sooner or later, but we'd cross that bridge when we got to it. We couldn't afford another strike right now. As it is, we're behind the pace of what's needed to meet the quantity demands. When the mayor calls me back to check in, as if in cue, my earbuds delivered a light chime. I tapped the accept button and glanced at my holopad, wondering what Brandon Hathaway would have to say about our progress so far. We still had 2 more days to supply what the Krev demanded, but I doubted Grass would be giving us any extensions. Would the mayor have ideas for stalling the aliens, or bringing in more bringing in more workers? Drawing any more personnel to the mines would look suspicious, with the security personnel already getting a stink eye. Hathaway blinked sleep out of his eyes, massaging the puffy bags in his coffee-colored skin. Morning, Taylor. Any update on the progress? I worked with them all night, supervising the moving shipments, helping out as much as I could, I answered. There is no ands, ifs, or buts about it. We're not getting it done quick enough to meet our deadline at the current rate. To meet our deadline at the current pace. We're already pushing the main drill to its maximum safe capacity. Our engineers advise me that they can't, in good conscience, funnel any more power to it. I see. I always knew that we were going to I always knew that we were going to butt heads with the Krev eventually, son. I might give you crap about giving them so much as an inch more than we have to, but we cannot afford to anger them any more than we already have. I'm with you that we must make this happen, though I don't expect the people to get it. They, don't remember what it's really like out there, what it's like to have thousands of ships coming for you. I know our military isn't cut out for combat, sir. We have a small handful of warships that can't hold a candle to the Krev's boats. We just need to make people see the big picture. There's adults spawn out there. There's adults spawn out there who've never seen Earth. There's adults born out there who have never seen. There's adults born out there who never saw Earth. Even you barely remember it. Not a lot of old folks to tell you about it either. I know the UN wanted a viable population, young, healthy people, to ensure the continuance of humanity. But we left a whole lot of experience and expertise behind. Too many tough choices. Me, a city councilman in a small town of bumfuck Tennessee, being the closest thing that we've got to leadership. Who would have thought I'd be leading what's left of humanity? You're doing an admirable job, for what it's worth. We kept the Krev out of our turf for decades, but it could never last forever. What we're doing here maybe buys us a few more years. The more I think about it, the more I know our days are numbered. Hathaway ran a hand through his silver hair. Damned if I don't know it. Hathaway ran a hand through his silver hair. Damned if I don't know it. You better keep your voice down, Taylor. 'Cause if anyone hears that we're thinking about giving up, there's gonna be a riot on our hands. I thought about us packing up and leaving, just being done with Krev. But wherever we go, it seems we're going to find aliens with side-facing eyes. I thought, at least they're not trying to wipe us out. We can cope with them. Humans are wild horses, Brandon, sir. We don't like to be broken. It's real hard to keep us under heel forever. You've been listening to old Earth songs from Noah's data dump, haven't you? Maybe I have, I admitted, flashing my teeth. All those efforts for genetic and cultural diversity, they're a shallow imitation of what we really had on Earth. The only way we really saved our culture, the vaults, the files, when I look at their sprawling cities and gatherings, their arts and attractions, I feel like we're living a life at 1%. Better 1% than 0. Look, Taylor, I don't know. I don't have much in the way of administration or I don't have much in the way of administration or a counterpart beyond the security chief. I need you to find a way to come through and pay off the Krev for a bit longer. You do that, and I'll let you have the trial run as a city planner. You and your honeysuckle words. I know you could help handle the day-to-day. Restore things to how they should be with the workers. Come again? I just want to be sure I heard you right. It's too good to be true. I thought through the mining supplies. I come through with the mining supplies, and I'm done with the Krev. Vic, yeah. You want me to work for you directly? I do. You want me to work for you directly? I do. You've toed the line and kept your head down, leading with the Krev. You did what humanity needed you to do. You're reliable, and it's time that you're rewarded for your patience. This is a moment where we can't afford to come up short. Prove yourself by getting the job done. When our entire colony, when our entire colony's on the line, and we'll get you set up. Whatever it takes with our double payout. Can you do that? Yeah, of course I can, sir. I'll move heaven and earth to make it happen. You bet your ass that you can count on me. The mayor wagged a finger at the camera. That's the spirit. Keep me posted when it's ready. You need someone to run interference on the Krev or anything at all. You let me know. I'll do that. I think it's time to get my ass into gear. I'm off this train soon as the doors open. Goodbye. I switched off the call, trying to stop my hands from shaking with excitement. Several people stared at me as I jogged to the doors, pushing past absent-minded passengers standing near the exits. My anger at the Krev for the position they'd put us in suddenly was something I could use. I hated working with them, and if I staved off their eviction plans this one time, I'd never have to kiss up to them again. My boots slapped against the rocky ground, finding my way deeper into the tunnels. I wasn't sure what to do other than make my way to the main drill. The scientists set those drills limits to conservative estimates of its capacity because they didn't want an accident. We could push it just a tiny bit further. We could push it just a tiny increment further for a short time, and it would be a slight risk. I'd stand right there and help monitor it for any warning signs. Then we'd temper the pace if we there was anything to sweat about. The only other idea I had was to dismantle our ships. That would never fly with Hathaway or the miners, and I didn't like scrapping our bare-bones defenses for parts myself. There was nothing to worry about. The mayor said to do whatever it took. Push it. Just an hour a day, and it'll be fine. I grabbed the hard hat. Yeah, very much. I grabbed a hard hat off the wall and moved over to a familiar, exhausted-looking technician. Can you feed just a small amount more power to the drill? Taylor, I told you, that's not a good idea. It's already in the red at its maximum capacity. I know you're supervising for the mayor, so I bet he put you up to this, huh? We're working as fast as we can. I won't endanger the lives of everyone here. Caper, I think that's the first... Caper, I think that's a bit melodramatic. I'm talking the slightest increase. This is an emergency situation. It's got to be able to stand a little more juice, right? You build these codes to not go right to the threshold. I'm just asking you to go. I'm just asking you to go to the actual threshold. You are not a scientist or an engineer. This is agreed upon limit for a reason. And even then, we probably shouldn't have had it under such high-stress conditions. It increases the probability of the equipment malfunction. Put stress on the metal. Are you certain the reason for these limits isn't so that it doesn't siphon? Are you certain that the reasons for this Are you certain the reasons for these limits isn't so that it doesn't siphon all the village's power? It's already dimming the lights. Hathaway won't care if we cause a blackout. You are experienced in this field, so I think you can find a way to toe the line, to push the boundaries. Between us, the colony's survival depends upon this. I'm begging you to try because there is nothing else to be done. Kaber hesitated, hand hovering over the controls. I have a bad feeling about this. Maybe the miners deserve to know. We're all down here taking the risks together. We know the risks, and frankly, we haven't got a choice. I'm here, so I clearly trust you to find a way. Just do it. It'll be fine. Damn it, Taylor. I'll dial it up a notch for 60 seconds, and then I'm putting it back. That's all I'm doing. I don't want to die down here. Neither do I. So it's cool. I knew there was a little wiggle room. If you can do that once an hour, that slight increase in production should be all we need. Thank you for doing what's right, Tellus. Thank you for doing what's right for Tellus, and for all of us. I'll leave the controls in your care. I'll be going around to make sure there's absolutely zero unnecessary pauses from the workers, and getting my hands dirty. We're in this together. Together, yep. K-Bar took a deep breath, steadying himself. His fingers tapped a button, sending the imperceptible uptick to the drawer. We could see it continue to chug along in front of us. I hope this is worth it, Taylor. I slapped him on the back with a smile. It has to be. We've just got to make it through these next 2 days, huh? See, nothing happened. Yeah, it's staying in the red, but the gauge was already in the red, right in the bubble. No movement. Well, that's the top of the scale. I think I should dial it back down. Tell you what, I'm going to walk off this way, just to count to 5. You just count to 5 and then switch it back. All right? Fine. I turned away from the control platform, nodding to myself to slow my heart rate. Kaber had spooked me a bit with his insistence on the hard limit, but there was no sign of any cause for concern. This minimal push would give us just enough to boost to meet the requisites, and then we were free. Maybe we should try to automate more of the machinery to prevent future worker issues from causing problems. I cast a glance over my shoulder at the relief technician switch to power back. I cast a glance over my shoulder as the relieved technician switched the power setting back to their former state, and slumped his head. No harm, no foul. I will say, I don't like this discordant rattling sound, but I guess that's mechanisms being pushed to the limit. The Krev really backed us into a corner here, so it sucks that we had to play Russian roulette to make it through. All's well that ends well. Now that the brief phase of mechanical overexertion was done, the ratting and internal heat should simmer back to its former state. I thought about looping by the processing center and checking if the impact of the tiny adjustments was enough. Hard numbers would confirm that we're back on track with the changes. When Mayor Hathaway called for the next update, I wanted to be able to tell him that I'd come through, that I'd done whatever it took. Wait, why is the screeching sound getting louder? Feck, I've got to shut it down, Kaber shouted. I turned back to face him, eyes widening in alarm. No, don't do that. Don't do anything stupid. I'm sorry, Taylor. I have to, right now, or we'll all There was a deafening sound like a clack of thunder. There was a deafening sound like a clap of thunder, followed by noises of metal colliding, striking the cupboard walls. A panicked Kaber slapped a hand on the shutdown button, much too late. while panicking shouts from miners hit my ears, some cut off as they impaled by something. Some cut off as if impaled by something. I whipped back around to see parts flying out from the towering drill. It had exploded, like it had been a pressure cooker waiting to burst. This couldn't be happening, not when we had to get those shipments. How were we going to meet How were we going to meet the Krebs' demands without the most powerful mining device? Heat slammed my face from the explosion as I placed my hands on my head with horror. It wasn't just one segment of the drill going up in smoke. The entire thing detonated like a chain reaction. As the initial build-up spread and the shutdown failed, finally sensing danger, I hit the deck on instinct, lucky to have my arms already atop my cranium. The groaning overhead intensified, the force of the entire contraption bursting into thousands of pieces of superheated shrapnel damaged the cavern's structural integrity. Dust trickled down from the ceiling, succeeded by larger chunks of stones and a deluge of sand. Was this how my life ended? Buried alive while trying to appease greedy aliens, for the chance to finally not have to deal with them. My eyes watered with denial, as the air was shrouded in smoky dust. I should have listened to Cabo, but how could a minor alteration have caused this much devastation? Choking sobs emanated from my chest before a mound of sand slammed into my head. The world went dark, as I found myself suffocating beneath the layers of debris. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to make the mayor proud, to save our home. This is all the Krebs' fault. I'm going to fucking haunt them in the afterlife. I'm going to make them pay for their I'm going to make them pay for the indifference in this life or the next. While I had feared that these would be the final waking moments of my life, as I was deprived of any oxygen, I found the last fleeting strength to kick out with my limbs. My hands managed to claw their way out from beneath the pile of debris to find the roof was precariously holding steady, or so it seemed. I couldn't see with my face still submerged in the dust, but I knew the sky had stopped falling. I poked my head out just enough, dragging myself forward and shedding any tiny bits of dust. A weak cough racked my chest, trying to spit out dirt and clear my nostrils. The back of my skull throbbed, suggesting a welt from where something connected with it. Despite how I willed myself to move forwards, my limbs were going lifeless. The last burst of adrenaline-fueled strength was fading. I could hear voices rushing in, further out from the blast site, helping to dig people out. I thought I heard Charisse above me, trying to wake me, but I already lost my grip on consciousness. My body sank into the ground's embrace, exhausted. Knowing I had ruined any hope of humanity meeting its obligations, I fell into a deep, unwelcome sleep. End of chapter. Oopsie doopsie. You can't really run anything redline all the time. Stretch. Yes, it was a big stretch, my puppy. I woke you up, didn't I? I'm sorry. What do you have to say for yourself? Okay. That's all you're going to say for yourself? Tongue lick. Good morning, BN666. Hope you're doing well. You need a haircut and a bath. No, you do. You do. You don't like haircuts. But you're gonna have one. It's your stick. Good afternoon, Yania. Hope you're doing well. Yep, can't run at 100%, 110% every day. Fall apart. Fair enough, fair enough. I do understand that. Gotta love the public holidays. Well, not me, I work on public holidays, but when you do get a break, regardless of whether it's a public holiday or not, it's always good. Comfortable? Okay. Alrighty, moving on to the next chapter. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to the latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 5. Memory Transcription of Tassie by some Scientist. Date, Standardized Human Time, March 13th, 2160. When General Naltor relayed the news of our visitors to the FIA. When General Naltor relayed news of our visitors to the FAI scientists, their indignance at being held hostage in their workplace evaporated. Just as mine had once, as I was briefed on the convoy. Just as mine had once I was briefed in the convoy. The press had been alerted as well, as the Lessian government prepared an official livestream alongside several broadcasts. How would the aliens respond to a series of questions? How would the aliens respond to a series of questions? How would the aliens respond to a series of questions? How would the aliens respond to a series of questions if we would allow reporters to corner them? If we allowed reporters to corner them, the aliens appeared to want to address the media, though they might not be prepared for provocative queries. Dustin, Nulia, and Heliska didn't seem unwilling to answer our inquiries, but there was such a thing as too much all at once. I whispered for Naltor to let the aliens address the populace, before allowing them to initiate a question and answer question only if they wanted to. The journalists needed to be advised to proceed with caution. Our visitors were friendly, as far as I could tell, but the last thing that we wanted was to scare them off. It was apparent there was some abscesses in their past that were slow to divulge. It was apparent there were some abscesses in their past that they were slow to divulge. It'd been my mission to figure out what we hadn't been told, but I found myself easily distracted by the humans' banter. Dustin regaled us with stories from his society and images from across the galaxy. All analysis of their food policies evaporated from my mind. So the Great Signal. So that Great Signal, the mystery frequency that kept showing up and some people thought was aliens, that we spent years researching, hundreds of scientific papers written on it, what we thought were alien signals, were actually microwaves. Like I was saying, we heat our meals, the data points were microwaves from impatient folks forcibly opening the damn oven before it was done, Dustin chuckled. Naltor's eyes twinkled with amusement. How many years were spent researching this? 17, if I remember. 17 years before someone goes, wait a second. This frequency is one that's really familiar. All because a multitude of people don't follow instructions, and the oven leak was right by the signal receiver. I would be so frustrated if FIA had spent years analyzing the signal that was from within our lab, I groaned. I guess it's strange to have spent so much time finding ways to analyze the stars, and have first contact just fall into our beaks. It's happened to many of us. It's happened to many of us, Nudia remarked. Gojits knew about aliens since before I was born, unlike Dustin's species. Dustin remembers when his kind first found aliens. Then humans, their soldiers landed on my planet. Our entire village panicked and my mother abandoned me. A human soldier came and saved me, raised me as his own. Heliska lashed her... Good morning, Natalie. Hope you're doing well. Natalia. Heliska lashed her conical tail. When you talk like that, you make humanity sound like the aggressors. But you all know they didn't want that. I didn't think that we were spelling out the details for the war here and now. The Bisons... The Bisons already know that there was a conflict, and that terrible things happened. I don't see the point of sugarcoating it, especially when it shaped all of our pasts. It's difficult to explain what Goja culture was like before the humans rebuilt the cradle's bombed-out husk, and Project Chronicle wrote us a guide map. Wrote us a guide map. Bombed-out husk. Bombed-out husk? You said earlier you lived in Skullgar since you were a child. General Nalta's eyes looked like they were about to pop out of his skull. Are you telling me that's because your planet was destroyed in this conflict, too? The humans are fighting you, and they did this. The humans fought with decency, and decent as a war can be, and did everything in their power to avoid civilian casualties. There are many videos of their sacrifice and valor, protecting innocent lives like mine. The same species that destroyed the Thafki homeworld centuries ago swooped in, while the Terrans, the alternative name for humans, were occupying our planet. But truth be told, they only did because our generals wanted to wipe them out. What the fuck? This history gets more and more fucked up the more I hear it. Do enlighten me on what motivated your species to wish humans extinct, and what sounds like their first contact. Would you ever get the same idea about us? No. That government is long gone. We're allies with the humans nowadays, and committed to peaceful exploration of the galaxy alongside them. You skipped my first question. What was the reason you wished for the humans' extinction? Dustin slumped his shoulders. I was hoping to touch on happier topics, General. I was hoping to touch on happier topics, General Naltor. Let's just say, for now, that it was hatred. It's been coloring every culture that we've come across, and it's been a painstaking journey to fix it. As I said, we'll tell you the tragedy of our galactic introduction at some point. I just see cameras outside, and I don't want our first words to billions of frightened Bisons to be about a war of extinction that happened 20 years ago. The real question isn't whether you're ready for us. The real question isn't whether you're ready for us here in Irvana. It's whether we're ready for you, Heliska admitted. Whether we can avoid making the mistakes of our predecessor organization. Maybe we can pen a new chapter in our history together. I need to know what's going on, Nalto fired back. If there's a threat to Bisons... Nudia fiddled with her claws. We're not the threat. We're taking every precaution to avoid causing you inadvertent harm to culture or safety. The threat to divergent societies was averted when the humans exposed centuries of lies and tyranny through their arrival. Centuries? I inhaled in a slow fashion, trying to process the words. I'm beginning to suspect I've underestimated just how troubled the galaxy's history was. You have no idea. Let's just say your first contact would be quite different without us. Dustin sighed. May I ask for us to enjoy the feast? Further through a cultural exchange, one with more levity than the current topic. I meant what I said about not wanting to get into this history in depth, yet it keeps coming up. I'm quite excited to meet the FAI scientists and to speak to the public. I'm nervous, Aliska grumbled. Very nervous. My flippers rested by the door, observing the crowd of cameras waiting for us. This is a celebration of the aliens' arrival. I agree that we should focus on what they are now, and not where they were in recent years. And not what they were in recent years. Have they forgiven our own contingent? As they've forgiven our own contention here, I'm eager for every citizen and every nation to hear their words. Citizen and every nation to hear their. I'm eager for every citizen and every nation. As are we. Our team only learned simplified Vrit, but that won't be a problem for you once we pass along our translators. Ludia tapped a spot right underneath her tiny ear, suggesting that she had some dermal implant. May we exit the vehicle? Of course you may. There's a podium with a microphone where you can address the watching world before the feast begins, the Selma General sighed. There's a podium with... Of course... Thank you for the membership. Very much appreciated. Auto Botmac, very much appreciated. Really? On my hand. You had anywhere to sneeze, but on my hand was where you chose. Worse than a cat. Can we exit the vehicle? Of course you may. There's a podium with a microphone where you can address the watching world before the feast begins. The Selma General sighed. The Arctic subspecies bison popped open the door handle, assisting me into the street with a flipper. Gathered FIA scientists looked like children who caught their first fish, eager to steal a glimpse of the alien visitors. Military personnel were corralling the media, as well as public spectators who torn down the sites as well as public spectators who'd torn down the side swim at the news. PSAs were being broadcast, warning anyone in the vicinity that their safety could not be guaranteed, and that this was an emergent situation. There was awe, excitement, curiosity, and fear commingling in the crowd. This was the moment Irana would be introduced to a galactic immunity, and we'd be asked to rise to the ocean. And we'd be asked to rise to the occasion. Every bison will see how much work and effort the aliens have put into learning about us, and how similar they are to us. For a moment, when the human was talking about those microwave signals, it felt so similar. Felt so normal. Dustin bobbed his head as each of his colleagues before leading the way onto the open. For a moment, we've done 15 chapters, so about halfway. But we're busy doing, nature predators now, and how similar they are to us. For a moment, when the human was talking about those microwave signals, it felt so normal. Dustin bobbed his head at each of his colleagues before leading the way out into the open. There was a wave of gasps from bisons who hadn't envisioned an alien looking anything like him. The patchy fur definitely caught them off guard. The shocked exclamations intensified once the two other visitors emerged with submissive postures. It was rare to see reporters tongue-tied. That effect didn't last long, though they seemed more subdued and taken aback than usual. The human raised a delicate hand, his palm facing the cameras, in a gesture that was likely some sort of acknowledgement. General Naltor helped usher the aliens towards the podium, though he seemed a bit leery of outright touching them. That might make it all real. The Selma shuffled. The Selma. That is very weird, Postmatic. I have no idea what's going on with Twitch. That might make it all real. The Selma shushed the reporter's questions, and after seeing that the Terran intended to deliver a speech, they obeyed for once. Apart from a few shouts of hello and welcome from the spectators that were likely science fiction aficionados, everyone was willing to wait in silence. I noticed several FIA colleagues shooting greedy glances at me, wishing they could transfer what I already knew into their minds. Our scientists looked more ready to strap the visitors to a chair and interrogate them than the reporters. Wow, hey there. Hey. No. Wow, hey there. I'm humbled and honored to speak with you, to be here on your beautiful planet. Please, do not fear us. Dustin waited for a moment as a new round of gasps took off. None were more surprised than my fellow scientists at his perfect writ. I know what you're all thinking, really, I do. It was only 20 years ago that I sat in an orphanage on my homeworld, listening as our planet's chief diplomat told all 10 billion of us that we'd met aliens. Now I'm here, as the mystical bee in a sea of cameras are pointing towards, and I know that this feels like a pivotal moment in your history. I'd love to hear Dustin describe more of what first contact felt like for humanity. I'd wanted to know if his people shared any of those transcendent emotions and wild thoughts that ran through my head today. I'm here to tell you that all of this will become a lot easier. It's raining subscriptions. Thank you very much. There we go. You gifted a guild tier 1 sub, Postmatic. Thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. I'm here to tell you that all of this will become a lot easier to process, sooner than you think. Before you know it, my Sims might be up and helping the new generation. Some child who listened to my words and felt compelled to explore the stars. It's a beautiful cycle. I'm also here to tell you that none of us are mystical at all. We're a handful of species that happen to upon warp technology. We're a handful of species that happened upon warp engines and formed an organization that ensures cooperation between 82 diverse civilizations. We're called the Sapient Coalition. We are devoted to science, to individual rights, and to peace. That's very weird, Postmatic. Warp engines? That answers my question about their mode of traversing the vast distances. Imagine what that technology could do for the Lassium space program. I also know that you're likely feeling self-conscious about how we might judge you for your worst moments. We felt the same. If I stood here and described all of the blunders, the mistakes, the divisiveness, or just plain stupidity of my people's history, I'd be here for several lifetimes. We fervently believe in your species and that you share our fundamental drive to explore this universe that we inhabit for only a fleeting time, that you can join us in celebrating new life and cultures. Unfortunately, I can only do sort of super long stuff I try and avoid. If you really do want me to read stuff, between 10-20 minutes is the perfect length. Life and cultures. I heard from Dustin earlier that his people were divided before first contact. As much as I wish they'd be perfect, there is something to be said for their flaws, that they haven't forgotten their past. We recognize our immense responsibility in introducing you to new technology. Great minds scattered across many worlds have made fantastic discoveries and creations that can save and better bison lives. I'm talking about eliminating the language barrier on Evrana that hamper communication. I'm talking about curing diseases, advanced prosthetics, genetic knowledge, and life extension technologies. Spaceships can bring you to nearby stars. We want you to share our blessings. Several cheers rose up from the crowd, as watching Bison seemed delighted by the possibilities that the human had laid out. There was so much needless death and suffering that the aliens' advanced science could conquer. There was a great deal of knowledge the numerous civilizations in the Sapient Coalition must have acquired. This altruistic rhetoric should make it evident that they intended to better our society, not to eradicate it like Bison colonizers on Nelum, or whatever had been done to the Thafki and the Gojids. If we were the first ones the SE had reached out to as an organization, I wanted to tell them that they were doing well. I wanted to play a part in helping them learn and create something better. That is about... give me a second. I got the numbers here. So roughly 1,500 words to 3,000 words is the conversion. Create something better. Better. But we must pass these marvelous things along with care. We wish to avoid their misuse and for them to be twisted into harmful applications. We don't favoritize any faction. The last thing we want to is aid death and division, when we've become so very fond of all of your cultures, the unique flames of life lit within billions of Bison souls. We wish for you to retain that beautiful uniqueness by maintaining your ways and customs. We hope you'll challenge us with new ways of thinking, and that you'll one day join our cause as fellow beings linked by the strange experience of sapience. Thank you. Nulia gave Dustin a congratulatory pat on the back, and his binocular eyes swelled with water from deep emotions. It seemed as though the human was moved by the prospect of Bison's hearing his words and joining humanity's pacifist cause. The reporters launched into vigorous sets of questions, asking for the Terran to expand on his points, and on other things he hadn't covered, such as how the SC found a runner. Heliska offered a brief comment that they'd take interviews at a later date, while Nulia tacked on that they planned to share their culture and history through a data release. All of their knowledge dispensed through the internet, to be used by all Bisons for the greater good. Yeah, I was. It was almost too good to be true, yet I didn't doubt their intentions for a second. Despite the seedy past I'd heard about, I found myself swept up in this new era of idealism. What Dustin outlined had been my life stream as well, even if it hadn't been perfect. Even if it wasn't perfect, or the transcendent society my heart desired. I still yearned to learn everything about it. I was glad that an official live stream would be recording the feast that took place inside. The FAI scientists permitted to dine with the guests should offer up interesting questions. The public might see the beginnings of those answers outlined during our commission. The public might see the beginnings of those answers outlined during our communion. Dustin turned to face me, a glimmer in his eyes. Dr. Tassie, one of the data points humanity asked to share is called the Golden Record. We attached it to the first probe that left our solar system, much like the Lastman space program did. A collection of our culture and our goodwill. We have so much more to share, but as the galaxy's sentimental people, we'd love for that to be the first thing that you see of us. That sounds delightful. We attached something similar to one of our probes, a codex of greetings in our primary 4 languages. FAI scientists recorded a message as well. You may have seen our faces before. I suppose we have then. If I remember correctly, mouse discovering you caused quite a stir. Semi-aquatic flightless birds. All sorts of facts about bisons made the rounds on the internet. You're the first pre-FTL civilization humanity has discovered. This is big to us as well. You stated your classification like it was noteworthy. Our birds, there aren't any other sapient birds? We know of 2 of them. The Dirtian and the Crocodile. The human's eyes darted back and forth, with jerky movements that seemed to be acknowledging the watching cameras. I'll happily provide you with a species codex when we transmit our data for your perusal. That info will probably come tonight. The Dirtian are not SC members. They run their own group called The Shield. They would have brought the Crocodile along with our first... We would have brought the Crocodile along with our first contact party. We almost did, but they're still a bit, fractious, complicated. We figured you'd have more in common with the water-loving Thafki. You're both drawn to it, aren't you? It's in our nature. It's why we build our nations on coastal. It's in our nature. It's in our nature. It's why we build our nations on the coastline. It's the giver of food and comfort. I believe Halaski said that you enjoy it too, despite being mammals. The Thafki blinked at the sound of her name. Humans are quite fond of the ocean. They evolved to be arboreal, but they seem to do whatever they want. There isn't much in nature that you won't find that they've turned into some form of entertainment or escapism. Earth is a galaxy's entertainment capital for a reason. There's something about their enthusiasm, their willingness... Earth is a galaxy's entertainment capital for a reason. There's something about their enthusiasm, their willingness to take on anything that's singular, Nudia remarked. I imagine some of their pastimes might expand your horizons. The human chuckled. Bisons already share our pastime of making me-mums. The human chuckled. Bisons already share our pastime of making memes, but I bet my face is being plastered on dozens of them right now. That was a Terran word you just used, I prompted. Pictures with silly captions. Pictures with silly captions on the internet. That's our word for them. I know you have a different one, but I am blanking. Say, I bet you could make one of us three existing... Say, I bet you could make one of us three exiting the vehicle, and everyone staring at us. Some tagline like, how's your parents look at you when you flunk a test? How your parents look at you when you flunk a test? You're an idiot, Nudia sighed. You know millions of people can hear what you're saying, right? You know millions of people can hear what you're saying. Then they'll make the memes just like that. I planted the seed. A little fun and humor wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It's a way of seeing the light in what's crazy. It's a very, human thing to do. Did you make memes when Did you make memes when the Kelson were bearing down on you? Of course we did. But let's not talk about that guy now, Dr. Tess. But let's not talk about that guy now. Dr. Tassi, would you mind showing us to the feast? General Nalton ducked away from where he'd been giving a statement calling for cooperation between Ritala, Salma, and Tisea subspecies. You're asking the wrong bison, but yes, we can show you inside. I think that went exceedingly well. You were quite personable and humble. I don't know if that'll resonate with people, but that quality of yours has impressed me, Dustin. Thanks. I respect that you want what's best for your people, General Naltor. Protecting the vulnerable is the most honorable thing Protecting the vulnerable is the most honorable thing any sapient could do. Attitudes like that are one of the reasons I have high hopes for Bisons, to become a force for good, smashing down any preconceptions. You talk a good game, alien. Let's eat, shall we? I studied the Thafki out of my periphery, noticing her moving closer to the human. Are you all right, Alaska? I noticed the suggestion of the feast seems to spark a reaction from you. I apologize. I'll be fine. This is my favorite activity. The blue-gray furred mammal muttered. I'd much rather be having a swim together, but I'm here to learn and be the positive influence. That's right. Positivity. Iliska sounded beyond unconfident, though despite my increasing suspicions over her feast anxiety, I couldn't bring myself to advise Naltor to call it off. If the alien said that she was fine, then surely I was worrying about her emotional state for no reason. Tafki's demeanor could be more timid than other species, from living in a commune without a homeworld. We couldn't apply biased standards to these visitors, no matter how similar to us they acted. Dustin had requested not to delve into the most disquieting. Dustin had requested not to delve into the most disquieting issues tonight, and I was willing to respect that. However, it might be worth investing more mental resources into picking up on any cues, just in case the Tafki was in a vulnerable state. This can't go wrong. With a live stream of the feast happening, I don't want it to reflect poorly on Hiniska, not without the context of what's up with her. I'll keep an eye on her, and I suspect General Nattletor will I'll keep an eye on her, and I suspect General Naltor will too. With the entire world watching our shared meal, I led the way into an FAI convention center, and prepared to introduce the aliens to the other scientists who'd spent a lifetime seeking proof of their existence. End of chapter. Big stretch. Oh. Alrighty. Much stretchiness. I think that is going to be me for the day. That is 16,000 words narrated today, which is not bad. First 5 chapters of the Nature of Predators Book 2 done. Yes. I would like to thank you all for spending your time with me. It's very much appreciated. I know that this is an awkward time, and also a time of day for most of the American audience. I hope you have a great one. If you're going to go to sleep, I hope you have fantastic dreams. If you're heading out to work, I hope you have a boring day. Those are always the best days because, you don't get into trouble on those days. Anyways, I'll see you all tomorrow, same time,